What is going on YouTube? Matty Ice here, and it is week 4 of the 2016 college football season. Now, going back to last week, it was one of my worst weeks, and I went 8-7, so hopefully I'll do a little bit better this week. We're starting off with tonight's game. It is a Thursday night matchup between the number 5 Clemson Tigers facing off against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Both of these teams are coming into this game 3-0. Clemson with a win last week over South Carolina State, and Georgia Tech with a win over Vanderbilt. Both these teams are coming in surprising good seasons. You know, Clemson, everybody has them. You know, they should be at least the number 2, number 3, but they've slacked up the first 3 games. Will this be the game that Deshaun Watson shows out? Probably, but they're going up against a Georgia Tech team who is finally figuring out how to run Paul Johnson's triple option offense, and their defense is not that bad as well. I am going with the upset here. I am picking Georgia Tech over Clemson 31-17. Moving on to Friday's matchup, it is the USC Trojans versus the Utah Utes. And USC is 1-2 versus Utah, who is 3-0. USC, they lost last week to Stanford 10-27, and Utah, they beat San Jose State last week 34-17. What's going to happen in this match? USC, they're still trying to struggle. They're still trying to find out who they really are. Utah, they're coming off of a few good wins, and this is going to be their real big test. But since it is at home, I'm going with Utah in this one. I have them being USC 21-14. Now moving on to the Saturday matchups, it is number 12 Georgia versus number 23 Ole Miss. Georgia's coming into this matchup 3-0. They beat Missouri last week 28-27, and Ole Miss, they're coming into this thing 1-2 and losing to Alabama 43-48. Georgia, under Kirby Smart, the offense is really moving, and their defense is playing sound. You know, they're actually playing what Georgia is supposed to be doing. And, you know, Ole Miss, they're just not a fourth quarter team. They have a lot of talent in the SEC and probably one of the best quarterbacks at Chad Kelly. But Georgia, I believe they're going to put it on this one because Ole Miss cannot play for 4 quarters. I have Georgia winning 35 over Ole Miss 31. Now moving on to another Saturday matchup, it is number 11 Wisconsin versus number 8 Michigan State. Both these teams are coming in undefeated. Wisconsin 3-0. They got a win last week versus Georgia State 23-17. Michigan, they got a big win last week over Notre Dame 36-28. Michigan, they had a bye week before going into Notre Dame. I believe that they're going to be running the table on this one. Wisconsin, you know, they're not that bad of a team, but they're no Michigan State. And I'm going with Michigan State in this one, 17-14. Now we're moving on to the college football game day pick of the week. It is number 19 Florida versus number 14 Tennessee. Both these teams are coming in 3-0. Florida, they got a big win last week versus North Texas, and Tennessee got a win over Ohio. The thing is, Florida has not played that good of an opponent. They did beat Kentucky early in the year, but Kentucky's just not that good. Tennessee has played a tougher schedule, and the fact that it's in Tennessee, the fact that Tennessee has lost 11 straight to Florida in close games, I believe they're going to have everything ready for this one. And also that Del Rio for Florida, he is out, and they're having to put a second-string quarterback in. I am going with Tennessee over Florida. I have them winning 28-27. Now moving on to another matchup, it is Duke versus Notre Dame. Both these teams are coming in at 1-2. Duke, they lost to Northwestern last week 13-24, and Notre Dame lost to Michigan State last week 28-36. Notre Dame, they're still one of the best teams in the country. The problem is they have lost to good teams, and, you know, they've struggled a little bit here and there, but I believe they're going to have it going good for them against Duke, and I have them winning 42-28. Now moving on to Pittsburgh versus North Carolina. Both these teams coming in 2-1. Pittsburgh with a loss last week to Oklahoma State, and North Carolina beating James Madison last week 56-28. North Carolina, they still have a lot of talent. that they've only lost to Georgia at the beginning of the season. And, Pittsburgh, they're coming in good, and it's going to be a good game between these two, but I have North Carolina winning 24-17. Now moving on to Penn State versus number 4, Michigan. This is set to be a good matchup between two Big Ten schools. Penn State with a win last week over Temple, and Michigan with a win over Colorado last week. Michigan, they're going to be running the table because they have a lot of big games this year, especially when they're at home. This is a good one. I have Michigan winning this game 35-21. Now moving on to another one, it is BYU versus West Virginia. BYU with a close loss last week, losing to UCLA 14-17. West Virginia beating Youngstown State 38-21. West Virginia, they've had a bye week to prepare for these matchups. BYU, they've lost 2 games, but they've lost 2 close games. And it's going to be close for the most part here, but I believe West Virginia is going to win this one. I have them winning 38-24. Now moving on to another good matchup, it is number 18 LSU versus the Auburn Tigers. LSU coming into this matchup 2-1. They defeated Mississippi State last week 23-20. Auburn coming into this game 1-2. They lost to Texas A&M last week 16-29. Both these teams have a little offensive controversy. LSU making a quarterback change. The new one, he's doing all right. Leonard Fournette, he sparked last week after coming off a few games injured. Auburn, they've still got to find their offensive game, whether it's in Sean White or the new guy, John Franklin, coming in. I believe it is going to be a close matchup. Their defense for both teams are going to play real well. But I believe that Auburn is going to beat LSU this week. I think they're going to pull this one out, and they're going to win late. I have Auburn winning 20-14. Now moving on to number 20, Nebraska versus Northwestern. Nebraska with a big win last week over Oregon, 35-32. They're going against Northwestern, who won their first game of the year versus Duke. Nebraska, they're going to be one of the teams in the Big Ten that are going to shock a lot of opponents and compete for the Big Ten championship. I have Nebraska winning this one 28-17. Now moving on to Oklahoma State versus number 16, Baylor. 2 powerhouses in the Big 12. There's going to be a lot of offense going on in this game, like there always is. I have Baylor winning this game 42-38, winning in a slight margin. Next one is number 7, Stanford versus UCLA. Stanford with a big win over USC last week, 27-10. UCLA with a big win over BYU, 17-14. Stanford comes into UCLA, as somewhat of the underdog, but I have Stanford winning this one, and Christian McCaffrey, he is going to have another big game like he's going to have all year. I have Stanford beating UCLA 24-21. And the final game that I have, it is number 17 Arkansas versus number 10 Texas A&M. A top 10 matchup between 2 SEC schools. Both of them are 3-0. Arkansas with a big win over Texas State, 42-3. And Texas A&M with a big win over Auburn, 29-16. This is going to be an offensive matchup, and both these teams, both their offensives know how to score. And I'm going with Texas A&M in this game, 42-41 over the Razorbacks. So that's it for my predictions for this week, and let's see what's going to happen.